You're very welcome along to the football kickoff with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. If you're new to this, then you should subscribe. youtube.com/offtheball. You can hit the subscribe button on that. And we are live with you every Friday morning, bang on 10:30, to talk about the biggest stories in football and the best games on telly this weekend. Let's get into it.
The football kickoff
with Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
All right, I am delighted to welcome back to the programme David Connolly, and Phil Egan is with us as well. Gentlemen, you're both very welcome. David, I might start with you. We had a flash poll which I think hints at how little we know about what's coming up in the future, and the question was, will Thomas Tuchel still be the Chelsea manager at the start of next season? It's 2-1 against the fact that he is going to be the Chelsea manager next season. You have to say, I don't even know if there's going to be a Chelsea football club next season at the moment.
Well, good morning, guys. Look, I covered this game, so the Norwich one, and I was also at the Luton game, and prior to both those games, you know, the news came out. Last night it was about no shirts, and there was talk that the lads were going down to the local sports shop to buy Chelsea tops. I mean, it's just incredible, really. And then before the Luton game, it was about, you know, the club going up for sale, and despite all that, they've won every game. And Tuchel isn't a diplomat, but he's been very diplomatic. I don't know who else could have carried himself in a similar manner. And if he is going to go elsewhere, you know, talk about possible Man United or somewhere else. I mean, you know, how he's dealt with this, I think, I don't know what else, or if anyone else could have handled it any better, you know, and he's shown strong leadership. You know, you remember he dropped Lukaku, made a couple of mistakes along the way, I think bringing Kepa on in the cup final. But look, nonetheless, I think he's obviously a very, very good manager, and they'll be coveted, as will some of the players. I mean, Rudiger, if I was Man United, I'd be signing Rudiger, you know. So, there's some certain tricky waters that they've got to navigate, Chelsea, and losing a manager and a couple of their players is certainly possible. Yeah,
you might have been bugging our pre-show meeting. We were talking about Rudiger and Tuchel potentially fetching up at Old Trafford. You're not convinced though, Phil. Is this the playing style not quite a fit for Manchester United?
Well, no, I think it'd be a strange one. I think he'd be an excellent appointment for Manchester United, but then I'd be scratching my head going, why have they gone in for Tuchel when they passed on Antonio Conte? And we were told, you know, maybe doesn't really fit into what United are about.
Different characters, maybe. It's less about the style of play than we're going to have Antonio Conte up here in the boardroom every day. He's going to be on the phone to Joel, and Joel's on the beach somewhere in Miami, and he does not need to hear Antonio Conte giving out about the money.
Tuchel's a bit of a ball breaker as well, like, so, you know, there is similarities there in terms
more polite about it.
Yeah, I think David used the word diplomatic, so that's probably exactly why Tuchel might be a better option for Manchester United. But in terms of if they're trying to build something, Tuchel has obviously, you know, he's been at projects with PSG, and obviously he's there now at Chelsea. You know, there's question marks about obviously both ownerships of those clubs, and Tuchel must be just getting fed up of it. And then maybe the opportunity to go to such a big club like Manchester United. It's just the way this Chelsea story, it just keeps changing every hour. So, like, as things stand now, you know, you hear of players are going to be sold. You hear Rudiger were mentioned. Obviously, he's out of contract. Azpilicueta's the same. Christensen. There's no way that if the club gets sold quickly, like it could happen, then these players want reassurances that everything will be all right. Yeah. Before they sign at the dotted line.
Yeah, and look, maybe we shouldn't speculate too much about what's going to happen just yet, because I think that they're still working out exactly what the rules that they've made up yesterday and how they will apply and what the practicalities of that are. But just to tease out Tuchel's future here, David, I think certainly the point you made about his standing in world football only has increased with the fact that in the midst of all this, the team goes out and performs the way it has been performing. And look, it could all go off the rails before the end of the season, but it doesn't feel like it's going to. It feels like he's got a grip of the squad. They have respect for him, and there's a good chance that they could win a Champions League again this year. It's not you know, it's not impossible.
No, look, they're European world champions, obviously. I looked at him last night, and you know, Loftus-Cheek came on, and look, it was an experiment. It didn't work playing the right wing back, but you know, he was berating him. You know, if he took up the wrong position, if he didn't, you know, show for the ball enough. I mean, he's very demanding, very exacting coach, as we all know. But as Phil was saying there, in terms of if he makes an enemy, say the Lukaku situation, he put him on the naughty step for a game and then he was back in, whereas you kind of spoke about Antonio Conte. I think he's an incredible manager, but it seems like if you make enemies with Antonio, then they're long lasting. Whereas it seems like Tuchel is willing to be quite a firm but fair manager. And you look at Lukaku since he's been on the bench, whenever he's come on, he's done well. He's had an impact on games. Look at the cup final. So I think he can manage a big squad of personalities. And look, if he was an option, I think it'd be a great option. But you know what? I think Rudiger would be just as good. I have to be honest. I saw Rudiger live a few times now. When you watch him live, you come to appreciate what a good player he is. I think he's underrated. And I think he would slot into somewhere like Man United. He could play left centre-back, right centre-back, in a back three.
Well, that's we were asking. So can Rudiger play in a flat back four? Was your concern? Was it?
Yeah. Well, he obviously plays in a three with Chelsea, and there was a stage at his Chelsea career where he wasn't getting picked. Frank Lampard wasn't picking him. Now that could have been in terms of his form, but also a clash in personalities as well. And he has been sensational. I wonder what he'd be like if he slots into a two, but his confidence is that high now that you wouldn't worry about him. But who would he be playing alongside if he went to someone like Manchester United?
Yeah, Raphael Varane.
Well, that's fine if Varane is fit, but then it's is he the latest person to go in beside Harry Maguire
and look not great?
And then just go, what am I doing?
It's kind of the reverse Paul McGrath. Everybody who plays alongside McGrath looks world class, but when you go and play alongside Harry Maguire, it's like, who's this guy?
Yeah, this guy is. I prefer playing with Thiago Silva. I mean, this guy knew how to read the game.
Yeah, they're about as fast as each other these days. David, to go back to the Manchester United managerial situation, which is the constant running plot line in this soap opera this season, almost by doing nothing, Manchester United now have a better list of candidates this week than they had last week, where Tuchel is not it would have been impossible if none of this had happened. There's no way that Tuchel was likely going to be available. You'd think that he would have been given next season's transfer window anyway, even under the old Abramovich regime. So suddenly he's an option. The papers this morning are reporting Pochettino is going to get sacked, and whether or not the sacking happens now or in the summer, he's officially gone from PSG. That's the word on the street by the time that June rolls round. So all of a sudden they don't even have to pay any compensation for these managers, and they have a bit of a pick. Ten Hag has apparently been asking people about the squad and what the character of the squad is like through third parties, so he is interested too. What would you do now?
Well, yeah, good question. I mean, look, I think getting in a manager from a different league carries more risk than somebody who's already in the league, So you look at Rangnick and Ralph Hasenhüttl, obviously cut of the same cloth, and Hasenhüttl has done a good job at Southampton. Rangnick and Tuchel are obviously same nationalities and know each other well. So if Ralph Rangnick's got a say in this, you'd imagine it'd be someone that he knows. So I'd be looking a couple of those managers in the Premier League, but whether that would actually happen, I don't know. I think the manager is important, don't get me wrong, but I think there's an opportunity here for United to go and get some good players by capitalising on the likes of Leeds and their predicament. Everton, if they go down or look like they need to sell, look at what's going on with Usmanov and people like that. It's not just Chelsea that are going to suffer. Everton could be suffering here. So maybe they could pick off Calvert-Lewin. Maybe if Leeds go down, they'd pick off Calvin Phillips. So there's opportunities here for United that they can seize upon. If Chelsea are still in a state of disarray, Liverpool don't go and buy multiple players. And City kind of haven't of late either. So, this could be United's summer of opportunity. So I think it's really interesting summer now if they can really seize this chance. They need a manager quick, because then they need to decide what players are going to go for that will suit the philosophy, but that's for sure. But certainly the players will be available, I think.
If you were Tuchel and you're looking to next season and he ends up not being at Chelsea for whatever reason, do you just sit out for a while and let your reputation get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you have your pick of clubs? Or do you think, well, I could be the one to do what Jurgen Klopp did at Liverpool for Manchester United and be the person who revolutionises that club and gets them back to winning Champions Leagues, winning the title?
Is that to me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're Tuchel, which is the most interesting job that you could get next?
Well, look, there aren't. To be honest, look, Chelsea is you got a fair chance of winning an awful lot at Chelsea, that more so than you have at Man United. I imagine the salary's big. If another billionaire takes over, which you'd imagine would happen, suddenly they're not going to go. You're not going to be a pauper from a prince, that's for sure. But he will have his pick of jobs if he did become available. And the United one is obviously the next obvious one. And you mentioned Poch is an interesting one, because just because it hasn't worked out for Poch at PSG doesn't mean it wouldn't work out for him at Man United. He spoke a lot about Tottenham as well, hasn't he? But I don't know. Has Poch made the tough calls that Tuchel has? People saying, well, maybe he could have benched the likes of Neymar, and what does he offer you in the team unless he's assisting? And you look at Tuchel and he makes a hard call on Lukaku. No one tells him, or he doesn't feel the pressure of the transfer fee or the reputation. So I think whoever comes in, they need a strong manager. And maybe Poch might have suffered a bit just because people think he hasn't been strong enough to drop any of, say, Neymar or Messi when it hasn't been working out this season.
Yeah, nice fixtures this weekend to bring all of this into sharp relief as well. We're the 5 fixtures that we're focused on. Brighton versus Liverpool kicks off at 12:30 tomorrow on BT Sport. It's the early kickoff. The evening kickoff on Saturday is Manchester United versus Spurs. Perfect opportunity for us to compare and contrast what would have happened if Antonio Conte had been the manager at Manchester United. That one's 5:30 kickoff on Sky. On Sunday, it's Chelsea versus Newcastle. You wanted narrative, we're giving it to you. At 2 o'clock on Sky Sports. Live commentary on OTB with Richie McCormick and Brian Kerr. And Leeds versus Norwich is at 2 o'clock on Premier Sport on telly. Arsenal versus Leicester is the 4:30 kickoff on Sky Sports with live comms on OTB with Nathan and Kenny Cunningham on duty for that one. Let's go through these anyway, and we'll get more to Man United Spurs in a moment. But Brighton versus Liverpool, there's no reason to expect Liverpool will do anything other than win here, apart from maybe potentially a little bit of fatigue creeping in, is there?
Well, obviously Diaz didn't start the other day, so you imagine he comes straight in. Brighton have been a little bit of a bogey team,
scoring late and
for Liverpool. Yeah, well, they came from 2 goals down at Anfield earlier this season. They won at Anfield last season. They drew 1-1. They scored a late penalty it was a lunchtime game. I always find watching these 12:30 kickoffs, sometimes Liverpool can be a bit sleepy at the start, but I think actually that defeat, even though they went through to the quarterfinals to Inter Milan, might have been just the wake-up call they need. Now, they did hit the woodwork 3 times and they had chances. So Brighton are the kind of team that, they will cause you problems because they're good in possession, but they'll also give you up chances. So there is every possibility if Liverpool scored an early goal, they could absolutely blow Brighton away.
How do you explain Liverpool's difficulties with Brighton? Because it's not like it's a stylistic, this isn't Wimbledon in the 90s or Burnley under Dyche. It's like, they can't, there's this thing they do. What is it?
It's just being comfortable on the ball, being able to get out of a tight situation where you can beat the press. And once you beat the press, then you can play a ball in behind and it's quids in. That's the risk Liverpool take. They basically say to their opposition, if you're good enough to play through the press, fair play, but usually you're not, because we are just going to strangle the life out of you. But Brighton tend to be able to get players into positions. Now, they have been out of form lately. Webster's been a loss to them. Shane Duffy's early form this season, that's gone now. Obviously Dan Burns gone to Newcastle, so they're not keeping goals out at the moment, and they've always had an issue scoring goals. They'll create plenty of chances. Some days they go in, so it does make for an interesting one. But I just feel that with Liverpool, somebody could get a hiding off them soon enough.
Okay. Are you confident enough that's about to happen as well, David, or is there just that little bit where Liverpool just need to keep things ticking over?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think Graham Potter, in the reverse game, he didn't play a striker. He played Trossard as a false 9, and they scored a great goal. His goal was brilliant from their own penalty area, but they're not in the same form. As Phil was saying, they're just not in the same form. So you kind of think, right, what surprises can he spring? He played a diamond against Newcastle. He won't do that. Will Liverpool play Mo Salah? I was reading the other day that he's played in world football or European football, something like this, the 14th most amount of minutes, and he played 4 games in extra time in AFCON. if you said to Mo Salah, you're not going to play against Brighton, he'd probably, bang your door down because he wants to score goals. But I guess looking at the bigger picture for Liverpool, would they freshen it up? Because he's used his squad quite well, but Mo's always played. But with the Champions League, etc. So look, I think Liverpool are going to have far too much for Brighton. If Diaz comes in, I think he's been superb. He could have scored maybe another goal or two, but nonetheless, I think they're up against a Brighton side who are in a different place to when they drew 2-2.
All right, let's get into Manchester United against Spurs. Kicked off at 5:30. Do we know if Ronaldo's going to be fit to play? Is he interested in playing? Is his hip flexor unflexed or flexible?
Yeah, well, if he's available, do you start him?
I don't know. Who else do you start now?
That's the problem.
Because everybody else was crap as well.
Yeah, so, I often wonder, like, we were talking about Ronaldo earlier. He scored 9 goals in the Premier League. I didn't even think it was that many. But when he signed, just think of all the fanfare around it. Yeah, he'll score goals. He's not scoring goals anymore, and he offers very little in terms of what they want to bring. I know how it ended last Sunday at the Etihad. They got absolutely torn to pieces in the second half, but there was moments in that first half where you saw they're better without Ronaldo. There's more energy there.
Okay.
The problem with United, they haven't got 90 minutes of that game that Ranić wants from them. They almost have to conserve energy at times. I think it's a really intriguing game where the statement win under Conte this season was only down the road from Old Trafford at the Etihad. Can they do the same? I can see Harry Kane getting a lot of space when he withdraws from...
You're not going to be hitting Man United on the break, though, are you? Because they won't be dominating you in possession.
They might try, though.
They'll lose the ball too early for the...
And that's, if they do lose the ball too early, then Spurs are just set up perfectly to hit them. And it's only a couple of seasons ago they did serious damage. It was last season even. It seems that long ago that...
This was a 6-1...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is the football kickoff with Sky, by the way. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. David, what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, I tell you what, if you go back to the game in October, right, United comfortably beat Spurs 3-0 after getting hammered 5-0 by Liverpool. So, Ollie seemed to always get a reaction, right? So it's now up to Ralph. This is a similar sort of situation, but, they're up against a Tottenham team who were brilliant against Everton. That United backline has got to go with the runners. You look at Telles trying to play offside and they're marking in the box. Telles, I think, was at fault for a couple. So you think about all the times Spurs are going to get in behind with the likes of Son and Kane. Kulusevski looks class. I think this is going to be a difficult one. I think Spurs might just nick this one.
What do you make of Matt Doherty's transformation over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I think it's been great. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his, and look at the loss since he left Wolves down that right-hand side. That they haven't been the same, and Semedo is no Matt Doherty, that's for sure. And I'm really pleased for him, because he was struggling under Mourinho. Didn't really fancy him, but he's been class. I think he's terrific.
Because even when Conte came in, he picked him early and then took him out of the team, and it looked like he was available for transfer, but nobody came in for him, or if they did come in for him, it just wasn't enough money, and then maybe they couldn't get a replacement. But now there's nobody else there.
No,
he's playing really well.
And as he said after the game the other night, he obviously set up the 2 goals for Kane, brilliant balls. He got his goal against Leeds as well. He said, I'm playing in the position that I enjoy. So when Mourinho signs him and then starts playing him as a right back in a 4, that's not the strengths of Matt Doherty. We see it with the Irish team. His best games for Ireland, well, he actually played really well as a left wing back in Portugal that night, but as a wing back, it's a completely different position.
Yeah.
And now he's got the confidence and he's setting up goals. He probably thinks he probably feels he should have scored against Everton the other night, but it was when Conte was brought in, you thought this actually should suit Matt Doherty, because this is the position that he wants to play in. Conte will get the best out of him, and obviously it was a bit of a stuttering start. I think the turning point was that second half against Leicester. Obviously it was an incredible win for Tottenham, but Doherty came on and he was brilliant, and it was the first time Spurs fans were going, I can see now what this guy is about.
Yeah, they were very dubious about him, and it's not really a competition anymore. If there's Coleman versus Doherty, it's Doherty first, and then can you get Coleman in the team somewhere else? Is it, from an Ireland perspective, David?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, and I think that was the issue for a long time, fitting them in, because you put Matt on the left, it's not the same for him. And look, Seamus has been a great servant for Ireland, but certainly I think that right-hand spot now is Matt's to lose, really. And he's under a top manager. You hear Harry Kane talking about Antonio Conte, he will be working them to the bone, very well respected. And expectations have changed, right? It just shows you. He's a bit volatile, the manager. But I think actually players would rather have a manager with a bit of passion and a bit of volatility, and he's certainly now got them playing how he'd want them to play. And the two signings have done great. Kulusevski and Bentancur have been superb.
That's the real kind of you back me in the transfer window, I'm going to be able to deliver players who immediately come into the team and start having an impact. That's the type of thing that will hopefully give Daniel Levy cause to invest. And we had Martin Lipton on OTB AM during the week. He was making the point that they are interested in other right backs, but the likelihood is it'll be an accompaniment to Doherty, that they'll play 50-50, which is totally fine over the course of the 70 games a season that you play in all the cup competitions and whatever. If he plays 35 games for Spurs next season, he's getting a new contract. We're all delighted. Very, very important player for us into the next couple of years.
Got one of the best coaches in world football looking after him. Stephen Kenny's happy.
Give us.
And do you know what as well, lads? I think an evolution for Matt would be at times to play that right side centre back. Now I know that would restrict him going forward, but in some games that right side centre back can get forward an awful lot more than just staying at home in a back three. So I think he could do that role too, Matt, in time. For
Ireland more than for Spurs, or for Spurs too?
For Spurs too. I think we know he's brilliant going forward, but I think he could do a little bit of both. I think there's no reason why he couldn't be our version of Reece James. He's able to play both roles, on that right hand side.
Definitely going to be interesting to see how Kenny uses him. Just briefly, now that it's come up, what was your take on Stephen Kenny getting a new contract? It felt like this should have been done a while ago, but
yeah, good news, really good news. Should have been done a while ago, but it doesn't matter now. I mean, Stephen kept his counsel and just got on with everything, and that's really good news.
Yeah. All right. The Sunday games: Chelsea versus Newcastle at 2, Leeds versus Norwich also at 2, Arsenal versus Leicester at 4:30. Chelsea versus Newcastle is like one of the most talked about and most hyped games in world football at the moment, given the recent takeover by Saudi Arabia of Newcastle and the fact that Chelsea have no current owner.
Yeah, and all the focus is going to be on Chelsea and Roman Abramovich, and we should not forget who owns Newcastle.
Yeah.
So it's maybe a few months ago this would have been billed as some sort of billionaires derby, but we can't call it that anymore.
No. And look, we'll do more on the sports washing that's going on at Newcastle as well as time goes on, but I do want to talk a bit about the job that Eddie Howe is doing, because when the first few weeks were there before the transfer window opened, and then as the transfer window opened and stuff wasn't really happening that much, you weren't quite sure how this was going to go, but turns out Eddie has a pretty good manager.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I'm covering a lot of games in England, and when the Premier League didn't have a game, when he was at Bournemouth and stuff, I would see him at Luton, Kenilworth Road, looking at players, on his days off. He works extremely hard, Eddie, and he's very well respected by players. Really good on the training ground, on the training pitch. And I saw them live against Brentford. I thought they were excellent. And Wood's got amongst the goals now. That will help him. And Big Dan Burns done well, as Phil was saying earlier. So the fans are behind him, which is important. He's done a great job. To go and beat Southampton is no mean feat. And John Joe Shelby pulling strings, he's still got the quality, right? What a ball in for Wood's goal. So, yeah, he's done very, very well.
I was going to make the point too that it's not just the new signings. So two things: the new signings are playing well for him, which is again a sign of somebody who's actually able to take what you have and make it better quickly. But some of the players who were there are also playing better under him, which again suggests good quality coach, able to communicate his ideas very clearly, very clear idea and identity about what he's asking people to do.
Yeah, well, Joelinton is your prime example there. He's dropped him a little bit deeper and he's been sensational. And, what it does as well is when he signed for Newcastle and there was such big money paid from every game that went by without Joelinton scoring a goal, it became a thing and he wasn't scoring enough goals. Whereas now he's in there, but he's contributing to the team in other ways and the focus isn't on his goals. Of course, he has scored goals. Then you look at Bruno Guimaraes, scores last night, unbelievable goal. He's barely played. Trippier was doing brilliantly until he got injured.
Yeah, it felt when Trippier got injured, you're like, oh, that might
could cost them. Yeah. But now, they're looking up. They're not looking behind them anymore. They're going to be safe. I always felt they would be safe anyway. Even
I wasn't sure. I have to say I wasn't sure, and I kind of felt like they might be getting Eddie Howe in to get them through this, and then in the summer they'd be like, "Oh, look, well done, but here's your payoff," and off you go. Now it's like we're going to back this guy because 6 wins in 7 games.
Yeah, and look, obviously, I've mentioned what's happening off the pitch, but in terms of what is actually happening on the pitch, this is a really tough test for Chelsea. Because Newcastle are in good form, and this is obviously a good chance for Newcastle to show that we could go to one of the bigger clubs and get a result, and this is without even scratching the surface of the kind of transfer dealings they're going to have in the summer.
Yeah, and again, the point you make, David, I think is important, that Eddie Howe hasn't just gone and splashed cash on big names. He's bought players for a style. He's bought players who he thinks are going to have an impact short and medium term as well. That this isn't kind of, when you look back on the famous massive splurges, Man City under Thaksin Shinawatra, there was the QPR Harry Redknapp era where they had like 5 World Cup winners who were all 37, 38. This is actually, he's bought well with a plan in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still think they need additions, right? I mean, I looked at Emil Kraft against Brentford down to 10, and Emil Kraft didn't know what to do with space in front of him. It's almost like they need a Matt Doherty type, to really attack down that right wing. So I think Eddie will be looking at certain positions and thinking about strengthening. They've still got Lascelles on the bench, arguably their best centre-half. He might change shape. He might go to a back 3 next season, get in a more attacking wing back, because I think Kraft isn't, but Targett certainly is. And, obviously he's getting more out of Ryan Fraser. Can he get Willock to score more goals, etc.? But he's had a real impact because he does do really, I know loads of players that played with him, coaches that work with him on the training ground. And you won't hear too many people say a bad word against Eddie. I think Amanda Staveley will have the red carpet treatment, make no mistake. But apart from that, I'm sure Newcastle will be a stern test for Chelsea.
Okay. Leeds versus Norwich kicked off at the same time. This is now all of a sudden an absolutely massive game. Leeds were abject last night, particularly in the second half.
Yeah. I actually watched them against Leicester last weekend. I thought they were very unlucky. The
analysis post-match last night was saying they were really good against Leicester.
They were excellent. Rafinha had a great chance to put them 1-0 up. There's that one moment of magic from Harvey Barnes and Iheanacho when Barnes puts it away, and that was it. But the encouraging thing from watching that game was Leeds created chances. Last night they were dreadful. They didn't create chances, and when they went 1-0 down, they huffed and puffed for a bit. They had a good start to the second half, but as soon as Matty Cash scores the second goal, that's it. People start leaving the ground. 3-0. Now I'm starting to worry that
Villa are the best team in world football. We know that, so it's only to be expected.
Yeah, we'll see. But the problem is, last night they didn't create any chances, and what made so many of these players who were championship players so good was Bielsa's system. So they're gone away from that now. And look, I know why I can understand why they changed.
I'm not sure. I think that you're so far steeped in blood. This is your whole identity. Everybody's on board. The fans are on board. You've just got to ride it out. I think you should have stuck with Bielsa.
And that's probably the way it's going to play out. Whether if they can beat Norwich, but if they don't beat Norwich, especially if Norwich go to Elland Road and win on Sunday, that could just where the confidence is just rock bottom. It's already nearly there, but Norwich win at Elland Road and it's hard to see Leeds get out of it. Whereas if they win, who knows? The encouraging thing was Bamford came on, got more game time, but there was some dreadful individual performances. I mentioned Matty Cash there. Firpo let him cut inside so easily. Now Firpo actually went off injured, but yeah, it's the Leeds fans are seriously worried now. They probably need at least three wins and a couple of draws.
It's hard to know because there's not a lot of teams who are going to go on significant runs. You would expect Burnley to pick up points. They'll continue to pick up points at the same rate they've picked up points for the rest of the season so far. Who's going down, David? That's the nice handy question for you right now.
I think certainly Norwich are. I think the worry for Leeds is, Phil just touched on it there. They're playing against Aston Villa, right? And Matty Cash bombs on like anyone else, flies down that right-hand side. And Junior Firpo never once looked over his shoulder to see where he was. Not once. I paused it thinking, right, he's going to look. Didn't even look once. I mean, you can do all the work on a training ground. They can play two holders instead of one, because they don't have Calvin Phillips. They can go zonally and not man-to-man under Bielsa. I worry for them at this moment in time. You look at the reaction from Rodrigo when he lost the ball. I mean, even the crowd got on his back. No surprise he was dragged off at half-time. Because if you give the ball away, you've got to react. I saw Chelsea give the ball away against Norwich, but they reacted and they got it back. There was nothing from Rodrigo.
Yeah.
And that really worries me because, when you're in bad form, you need lads to work hard. I mean, his body language was awful and his reaction. No surprise he got dragged off at half-time. So, big game against Norwich. I think they've got to win it.
Yeah, okay. Arsenal against Leicester is the last game that we're talking about this week. Arsenal's uptick in form. Mikel Arteta, manager of the year.
Yeah, well, the one plus that Arsenal have had this season is no European football. So more time to work on the training ground. I think I've no doubt that Arsenal have a decent starting 11. They just don't have the depth at the moment. That's something that they build. But if they can keep most of that team fit, they have a great chance of finishing in the top four, which not many people were giving them a chance of at the start of the season.
Games like this, you kind of have to win at this stage of the season.
Yeah, and do you know what? Leicester, Vardy was back, but he's gone again. Leicester, you don't know what to expect from them. But Vardy made a big difference. Maddison didn't play last weekend.
Leicester were playing last night though, right?
Last night they beat Rennes 2-0 in the Conference League. And you don't really know what... They'll get up for certain games, but I'd still fancy Arsenal to beat them. I think Arsenal are... they kind of sense this is their moment.
Yeah, this is it, David, isn't it? It's flaky old Arsenal or it's new hardcore Mikel Arteta. He's the new Guardiola. And it's games like this that they have to prove us that they've changed.
Yeah, but look, it'll be difficult because I think Leicester were this season probably more than any other team victims of so many injuries. I never bought into this narrative that they're a bad side. Rodgers is a bad manager. They had the heart ripped out of their team. Leaders on and off the pitch, unavailable to them, and basically playing players that and it just wasn't working out in different positions for Leicester. But they're back in form now, 4 in a row. This will be a tough game for Arsenal. Saw them against Watford. Don't get me wrong, Odegaard, very talented. Saka, absolutely sensational. We know that, but they were up against Watford. And as we saw last night, Watford are just in awful form. And they had a little bit of a response. They scored a great goal from Hernandez in the Watford game, the Arsenal game. But barring that, there was nothing. So they're going to face a much sterner test here, Arsenal. And I think Leicester might nick this away from home. It'll suit them counter-attacking. Kieran Tierney, will he go forward? I don't think he will. I think he might stay home a little bit. And Cedric up against Harvey Barnes. I think Harvey Barnes will certainly have the better of him, so it's going to be interesting.
All right, should be a good game. Kicks off at 4:30. You can hear it live on Off the Ball with Nathan and Kenny Cunningham on duty for that one. The football kick-off with Sky, all the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. We're here at 10:30 every Friday morning. Click subscribe on our YouTube channel, and when we're live we'll let you know. So every week we do also ask you on Instagram to choose your five-a-side made up of players competing in our selected games. This week it was David De Gea versus Hugo Lloris. De Gea won a landslide. Tariq Lamptey versus Trent Alexander-Arnold. Funnily enough, Trent won that one. It was Forshaw versus Billy Gilmore. Billy Gilmore won that one. Not getting a lot of game time at the moment. Kai Havertz versus Joe Linton. Havertz won that one. And Alexander Lacazette versus Daka. Lacazette won that one. Lacazette's been good. He's been what they need.
Yeah, he has. He'd probably be the player that you're looking to replace for next season.
Well, he's out of contract,
yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if he's any interest in staying or how much he can wangle from somebody else as well. In the meantime, enjoy your football this weekend. David, great to have you with us. Phil, thanks very much. We'll see you next Friday at 10:30. Take care.
The Football Kickoff.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.